When I walked across that stage, the applause sounded polite, the kind of applause people give to a substitute teacher they don't know. 45 years old, a college graduate, I was supposed to feel proud. Instead, I felt like a leftover at a family picnic. I scanned the crowd, clutching my diploma like it might turn into something useful, maybe a magic wand or a baseball bat. I looked for one face I knew, my husband's, then my kids. Just one smile, one wave, nothing. A sea of strangers, clapping for someone else's success. My best friend Carol had been right. "Don't expect them," she'd said that morning while I zipped up my gown. "They'll find an excuse. They always do." I laughed it off. "Come on, Carol. They're my family. This is a big day." She just looked at me with that pitying expression people give stray dogs. "Honey, people who can't clap for you don't deserve front row seats." Turns out she was right, and I was the fool wearing heels on a football field. After the ceremony, I stood outside with the other graduates, everyone hugging, taking selfies, holding flowers. I took out my phone, waiting for that one text. "We're so proud of you, babe." Or, "Sorry, we're late. Where are you?" But there was nothing, just silence, and the sound of other people's joy. Then I opened Facebook. Big mistake. There it was. A post from my brother. "Perfect day for barbecue and family time. So blessed to have everyone together." And in the picture, my entire family, my husband, my kids, my mother, even my dog, who apparently had better social instincts than the people who raised me. The caption might as well have said, "Screw your graduation, Susan." I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Then I laughed. That dry, brittle kind of laugh that makes strangers take a step back. I told myself, it's fine. They're probably celebrating early. Maybe a surprise later. Maybe. And that's when my phone buzzed. A message from Tom, my husband. "We need to talk. Urgently." And right beneath it, 45 missed calls. Not one. 45. My stomach turned cold. I checked the time. 3:47 p.m. The barbecue had started at 1. What could possibly be urgent enough for 45 missed calls, but not important enough to show up for my graduation? Carol noticed my face and frowned. "What's wrong?" I showed her the screen. She whistled. "Oof, that's either a medical emergency or something worse." I called back. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. So I texted, "I'm fine. Ceremony's over. What's going on?" Nothing. I waited a minute, 2:05. Still nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, a text from my teenage daughter, Lily. "Mom, whatever you do, don't come home yet." That did it. The diploma nearly slipped out of my hand. I called her immediately. She answered on the first ring, whispering like she was in a movie. "Mom, Dad's freaking out. Uncle Rob said something, and he just lost it. He's breaking stuff." "Breaking what?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I don't know. Plates, I think. Maybe more. Just don't come home, okay?" In the background, I could hear shouting Tom's voice, raw and angry, overlapping with my brother's. Something crashed. Lily gasped. "Lily," I said, heart pounding, "put your father on the phone." "He can't," she whispered. He's in the backyard with Aunt Jenny. And oh my God." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, frozen, my reflection shaking in the black screen. Behind me, Carol was already grabbing her keys. "Get in the car," she said. "We're going." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just moved my cap still on, my diploma still clutched, my heart pounding against ribs that suddenly felt too tight, because when your husband skips your graduation for a barbecue, that's betrayal. But when your daughter tells you not to come home, that's something worse. And deep down, I knew whatever waited at that house wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of something I'd been too blind to see for years. Carol's car smelled like vanilla air freshener and judgment. She didn't talk much as she drove, just tightened her grip on the steering wheel every time my phone buzzed. Tom had texted once more, "Please don't come here. I'll explain later." No punctuation, no emotion, just panic disguised as control. I typed back, "Too late." The windshield wipers groaned across the glass as we pulled into my brother Rob's street. From half a block away, I could already see the crowd cars lining both sides of the road, lawn chairs scattered across the yard, balloons tied to the mailbox. It wasn't just a barbecue. It was a celebration, my family's celebration without me. Carol muttered, "You sure you don't want to let me handle the talking? I've been told I have a soothing presence before a homicide." I didn't answer. I stepped out of the car and felt the damp grass under my heels. The laughter hit me first, my kids', my mother's, even Tom's deep voice rising over the music. They sounded happy, joyful, like a family untouched by guilt, until they saw me. The conversation died the moment I stepped through the gate. Plastic cups froze midair, someone turned down the music, and the smell of overcooked burgers hung thick in the silence. "Mom?" Lily's voice cracked first. She was standing near the grill, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. "I told you not to. Where's your father?" I asked. My voice came out colder than the wind that carried the smell of charcoal. Tom appeared from behind the shed, holding a beer bottle, trying to look casual and failing miserably. He froze when our eyes met. "Susan," he started, "you shouldn't be here." That seems to be the family motto today. I glanced around at my brother Rob, who suddenly found his shoes fascinating, at my mother, who couldn't even meet my eyes, at my son, who was pretending to text. The betrayal in the air was so thick I could have sliced it with my diploma. "Congratulations, by the way," Rob said finally, voice sheepish. "We were going to come by later." "Later?" I snapped. "You threw a party instead of showing up to the one moment I worked for in 20 years. I studied while cooking dinners, paying bills, taking care of everyone." "Susan," Tom interrupted, "please just let's talk inside." "No," I said, stepping closer. "We're doing this right here. I want everyone to hear whatever urgent thing couldn't wait until after my graduation." His jaw tightened. He looked at Rob, then back at me. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out." Oh no, not that sentence. The universal prelude to something soul crushing. My hands went cold. "Find out what, Tom?" He hesitated too long, and that's when I saw her, Jenny, my brother's wife, standing near the back door, hair messy, eyes red, wearing my sweatshirt. And just like that, the world tilted. Pieces clicked. The missed calls, the panic, Lily's whisper, "He's in the backyard," with Aunt Jenny. I laughed a raw, hysterical sound that even startled me. "Wow," I said, "you couldn't just ruin my graduation, huh? You had to destroy my family in the same afternoon?" Tom dropped the bottle. It shattered against the stones. "Susan, please, it's not what it looks like. "Oh, that's rich," I said, "because from where I'm standing, it looks like my husband spent the day celebrating my brother's barbecue and his own stupidity." Jenny stepped forward, eyes wet. "Susan, I swear it just happened." "Don't you dare," I said, voice trembling with rage. "You just happened to my marriage." The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. My mother covered her mouth. Rob's face went white. Tom tried again. "We didn't plan this. It was—" "An accident?" I said. "Because apparently you trip and fall into your sister-in-law now." Carol, standing behind me, whispered, "You want me to hit him with the car, or are we still in the verbal phase?" "Not yet," I muttered, eyes locked on Tom. I'm still enjoying the irony. Jenny turned to Rob, tears streaming. "Rob, please!" But Rob didn't look at her. He looked at Tom, and then, without warning, he punched him. The crowd gasped. The beer can pyramid toppled. My son yelled something incoherent. Tom stumbled back, wiping blood from his lip. "You don't understand." "Oh, I think we do," Rob growled. "You cheated on my sister with my wife. I think that's crystal clear." Jenny sobbed. "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" I shouted. "Because I'm dying to hear the version that makes this okay." No one answered. The storm clouds overhead rumbled right on cue, as if the universe wanted a dramatic soundtrack. I took a deep breath and finally said, "You want to talk, Tom?" "Fine, let's talk, but not here." I turned to leave, clutching my diploma so tight the edges bit into my hand. But before I could take a step, my phone buzzed again, one final text. From an unknown number. "You don't know the full story, Susan. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., outside the college." I stared at it, heart thudding, because the message wasn't signed Tom. It was signed Jenny. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I sat in the kitchen until sunrise, the house silent except for the refrigerator humming like it knew something I didn't. Tom had packed a bag and left sometime after midnight. No note, no sorry. Just the faint smell of his aftershave and a dent in the pillow next to mine, a ghost with bad taste in cologne. The kids stayed in their rooms, doors shut, the silence between us heavy and polite. The kind that says, "We love you, but we have no idea what to say right now." At 9:45 a.m., I parked outside the college in the same spot where yesterday I'd celebrated alone. My cap and gown still lay in the back seat, wrinkled, symbolic, tragic. Jenny was already there, sitting on a bench, looking nothing like the woman who'd destroyed my life 12 hours earlier. Her hair was tied back, her eyes swollen, her hands shaking around a coffee cup that hadn't been sipped. When she saw me, she stood, nervous. "Susan, thank you for coming." I crossed my arms. "You texted me at 2 a.m. from a number I didn't know, so unless you're about to tell me Tom died, make this quick." She swallowed. "You deserve to know what really happened." "Oh, I know what happened," I said. "I saw it in 4 kelvins at my brother's barbecue." She shook her head. "Not that. There's more. And you're not going to believe it." I rolled my eyes. "Try me. I've survived childbirth, algebra, and a cheating husband. My threshold's pretty high." Jenny sat back down and rubbed her temples. "This started months ago. Your husband came to Rob, said he was broke, that he'd taken out a second mortgage behind your back. He was desperate. He asked Rob for money, and Rob refused. That's when I got involved." I froze. "You mean you helped him?" "I lent him the money," she said quickly. "Cash, He promised he'd pay it back in 2 weeks. I blinked, and when he didn't, she looked down. He panicked, said he had an idea to make it up to me, that he could repay in another way. I said, "No, Susan, I swear I did." But then he showed up drunk one night, Rob was out of town, and I held up a hand. "Stop, just stop." I could taste bile at the back of my throat. "You expect me to believe this was about money?" "It was," she whispered, "at first. But then he started talking about something else. Something about your degree. That got my attention." "My degree?" She nodded. "He said it wasn't real." I stared at her. "Excuse me?" "He told me you'd used fake transcripts, that you didn't actually qualify for graduation. He said he helped you fix it. That's why he was so nervous yesterday. He got a call from the college. Someone had found out." My stomach turned to ice. "That's ridiculous," I said. "I earned that degree. Every credit, every exam." "I believe you," she said quickly. "But Tom, he was convinced you'd find out what he did. He said he forged something, maybe a signature or a grade." He was terrified. The ground seemed to tilt. "He forged my records?" Jenny nodded. "To help you graduate early, I think. He said he wanted to surprise you, but it spiraled. He said someone at the college had started asking questions." "Who?" "I don't know, but I think that's why he lost it yesterday. Rob confronted him about the money, and he said, 'She's going to find out anyway.'" I sat down slowly. The world blurred. Tom, my husband, had cheated, lied, and apparently turned my 4-year degree into a felony. I laughed. It came out broken. He couldn't just buy flowers like a normal man. Jenny looked at me desperate. "Susan, I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I swear he's in trouble. Not just with you, with the school, maybe even with the police." I took a deep breath, forcing my thoughts into order. "Where is he now?" "I don't know," she said. "But he's not answering Rob's calls either." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "I'm sorry for everything. Please, don't go to the police yet. Meet me at the old diner. At 4. I'll explain everything." Jenny leaned over. "Are you going?" I stared at the screen. "I don't know." She hesitated. "If you do, be careful. He's not the man you think he is." I stood, clutching my phone. "Oh, Jenny," I said, my voice steady now, cold in that way that comes only after heartbreak and clarity. "I think I finally know exactly who he is." As I walked away, my phone buzzed again this time, from an unknown number. "If you meet Tom, you'll regret it. He's not who he says he is. No name, no punctuation." But the sender ID? It wasn't blocked. It said, "Dean's Office, Westridge College." The diner sat on the edge of town like a memory that refused to die, faded red booths, flickering neon sign, and coffee that tasted like melted anxiety. I hadn't been there in years, not since Tom and I used to come on Saturday mornings back when we were a team, back when we still meant something. Now, at 3:57 p.m., I sat in the corner booth alone, facing the door, my fingers curled around a chipped mug of burnt coffee. Outside, rain streaked the windows. The world looked like it had been crying longer than I had. Every minute felt like an hour. At 4:08, the bell over the door finally jingled. Tom walked in dishevelled, pale, eyes hollow like he hadn't slept in days. He spotted me immediately, and for a moment his face flickered relief, guilt, fear, all at once. He slid into the booth across from me, his hands trembling as he removed his cap. "Susan," he said softly, "you look—" "Don't," I said. "You lost the right to finish that sentence." He nodded, defeated. The silence stretched between us until I couldn't take it anymore. "So? Let's hear it. Why did you forge my records? Why did you lie to me? Why—" He cut me off. "I didn't forge them." I stared at him. Jenny said, "I know what she said," he snapped, then lowered his voice. "But she doesn't know everything. None of them do." He leaned forward, voice shaking. "You didn't fake anything, Susan. You earned that degree. Every credit, every paper, you did it all." "Then what's the problem?" He rubbed his face. "Because someone else used your file." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "Last year," he said, "when you enrolled in your final semester, the registrar's office had a system breach. I didn't tell you because I thought it was minor, but someone I don't know who duplicated your student record, same name, same ID, everything. They used it to apply for federal aid under your social security number." I blinked. "Financial aid fraud? That's what this is about?" He nodded. "They got over 20 grand before the school caught it. The feds are investigating, and since the applications matched your credentials—" "They think it's me," I whispered. He nodded again. "Or me, because it was filed from our home IP address." My heart pounded. "Our home? Tom, what did you do?" He clenched his fists. "I didn't do it, I swear. But someone did, and they made it look like us." He looked around, lowered his voice further. "That's why I went to your brother. I needed money fast to pay it back before it hit your record. I thought I could fix it quietly, but then Rob said no, and Jenny offered to help," I said bitterly, "with cash and moral bankruptcy." He winced. "I didn't plan that, Susan. It just happened." "Oh, I'm sure it did," I said. "Everything in your life seems to just happen. You just happen to cheat. You just happen to commit fraud. You just happen to ruin people's lives." "I was trying to protect you," he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The diner went quiet for a moment. He lowered his voice. "I thought if I could fix it before anyone found out, you'd never have to know. But it's too late. Someone tipped them off." I leaned forward. "Who?" He hesitated, eyes darting to the window. "The college, or maybe someone at the college. I think it's that woman, the dean. She called me last week, said she knew what I'd done, that she could make it disappear for a price." I frowned. "Wait, the Dean of Westridge? Dean Keller?" He nodded. "Yeah, her. Tom, she's in her 70s. She barely knows how to use email." He shook his head. "I'm telling you, Susan, she's not who she says she is. I met her once at her office. She said she'd help, but then she mentioned your old professor, the one who wrote your thesis. Said he'd been asking questions about you, about us." "What kind of questions?" Tom's eyes met mine. "About your research, about how it connects to the grant money that disappeared 5 years ago. He said your name was on some of the files." I froze. "That's impossible." He leaned in. "Then why does your name show up on the audit reports?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number. "He's lying. Check the basement." My blood went cold. Tom noticed. "What is it?" I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Someone just texted me. They know we're here. He frowned. What do you mean? Check the basement. I looked up slowly, my pulse in my ears. They mean our house, I said. Tom, what did you hide down there? He went completely still. Then, quietly, he said, if they found it, we're already in trouble. There's a certain kind of silence you only hear when your whole world starts cracking. Not loud, not dramatic, just thin, like air stretched too far. That's how the drive home felt. Tom sat beside me, quiet, clutching his phone like it was a grenade he wasn't sure when to throw. When we pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. My flower pots, my wind chime shaped like a cat, the porch light I kept meaning to fix, but normal doesn't mean safe. Tom got out first. Stay here. Not a chance, I said. If you buried something in my basement, I'm the one digging it up. Inside, the house smelled like rain and old coffee. My diploma still sat on the kitchen table, unopened in its shiny black folder. I glanced at it, the absurdity of it all hitting me again. I'd worked 4 years for that degree, and now it was just evidence in someone else's crime. Tom grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and led me toward the basement door. Susan, before we go down there, you need to know. Stop, I said. You've said that line too many times this week. He sighed, then opened the door. The basement smelled like damp dust and regret. He flicked on the single bulb that barely worked, and shadows danced across the old boxes. Over there, he said, pointing to a stack near the furnace. Under the top. I crossed the room, heart pounding, and pulled it back. Beneath the top sat a grey metal filing cabinet, locked. What's in it? I asked. He hesitated. Everything I was trying to protect you from. I turned to him, narrowing my eyes. You're going to have to be a bit more specific, Tom. That list's getting long. He knelt down, hands shaking as he fished a key from his pocket. When the drawer creaked open, the smell of old paper hit me. Inside were folders, dozens of them labelled with dates, names, and numbers I didn't recognize. What is this? He pulled one out, flipping it open. Financial records from the college's research grants. Every missing dollar, every fake invoice, they were funneled through a shell company, one registered under your name. I froze. What? I didn't do it, he said quickly. I swear, Susan, I found them by accident. Years ago, when you first enrolled. Someone used your maiden name to launder money through the program. They set you up as the consultant. When I realized it, I didn't know what to do, so I hid them. Why not go to the police? I demanded. Because the person who did it still works there. I blinked. You're saying someone at the college used my name for fraud and you just kept it in the basement? He ran a hand through his hair. I thought if I came forward, it'd drag you down too. I was waiting until I could prove who it was. And did you? He hesitated. Tom, he swallowed. Yes, I think it's Dean Keller. I laughed once, sharp and humourless. The 70-year-old woman who gives motivational speeches about ethics? He nodded. She's not what she seems. She's been embezzling grant money for years. The dean's office, the bursa, the research accounts, all of it. I found her name on transfer orders. And when I confronted her, she threatened me. Threatened you? How? He looked at me, eyes hollow. She said if I didn't stay quiet, she'd expose you. She said she could prove you were involved, that you signed the documents. She has copies, Susan, real ones. That's why I panicked. That's why I needed the money, to buy them back. I took a step back, my head spinning. You risked our family to cover for me? For something I didn't even do? I didn't have a choice, he said. I thought if I paid her off, she'd stop. And did she? His silence was the answer. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, same unknown number as before. You found the files. Good. Now get out. You're not the only one looking for them. A sound echoed from upstairs. A creak, then another. Tom's head jerked toward the ceiling. Did you lock the door? I thought you did. He grabbed the flashlight, killing the bulb so the room plunged into darkness. We stood there, frozen, listening. Footsteps slow, deliberate crossed the living room above. Then the unmistakable sound of the back door creaking open wider. Tom mouthed, "Stay here!" But before he could move, a voice floated down the stairs, calm, familiar. "Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins," it said. "This is Dean Keller. Why don't we talk about what you found?" The flashlight slipped from Tom's hand and hit the floor with a dull clang, and in the dim glow that remained, I saw the outline of a gun in the dean's hand. You'd think after a lifetime of PTA meetings and bad marriages, I'd know how to handle confrontation. But standing in the dark of my own basement while a 70-year-old academic aimed a gun at me was not on the syllabus. "Dean Keller," I managed, voice tight. "You're a long way from the faculty lounge." She smiled, the polite kind people wear at funerals. "Call me Marlene, and I'm not here as a dean tonight, Susan. I'm here as someone who doesn't like loose ends." Tom swallowed hard. "We didn't tell anyone." "Oh, Thomas," she said, stepping down the stairs, heels clicking like punctuation. "That's a lie, and you know it. You went snooping in places you shouldn't, and now you've dragged your wife into it. Her gun wasn't shaking. That was the part that terrified me. She'd done this before." I raised my hands slowly. "Look, whatever this is, we can talk about it. You're not the first person who's cooked the books. Let's make a deal. I delete, you retire." Marlene laughed softly. "You always were clever, Susan. That's why we chose you in the first place." I froze. "Chose me? Oh, didn't he tell you?" she said, nodding toward Tom. "You weren't just a name we borrowed. You were the perfect cover. Bright, overworked, distracted by family drama. Nobody looks twice at the woman juggling homework and housework." I turned to Tom. "What is she talking about?" He looked sick. "I didn't know. I thought they used your name by accident." "Accident," Marlene interrupted. "Please, your husband was our first accomplice. He just didn't realize it. I needed someone inside the bursar's network, someone who wouldn't ask questions if a few zeros went missing. And he was perfect, desperate, loyal, and not half as smart as he thought." Tom's face went white. "You lied to me." "I recruited you," she corrected, "and you performed beautifully until you fell in love with your own guilt. The gun swung between us like a metronome of bad decisions. I kept my voice even, so you framed me, used my degree, stole government funds, and now you're what here to retire with a bang." Her eyes glinted. "No, I'm here to collect my files." Behind me, the cabinet was still open. The folders glowed faintly in the spill of the fallen flashlight. I took a slow breath. "And if we say no, then you'll both be very, very unfortunate." Tom stepped forward, shaking. "Marlene, please, just take them and go. Nobody has to." I cut him off. "No, she's not leaving with anything." Marlene cocked her head. Brave. Practical, I said. You shoot us. The whole street hears it. You walk out without the papers. Nobody connects you to anything. You shoot us. They'll find your fingerprints in my house before the coffee gets cold. Her expression didn't change. But her finger eased slightly off the trigger. Tom seized the moment and lunged. The gun went off. The flash blinded me. The sound was deafening in the small space. For a second, I couldn't tell who'd been hit. Then Tom staggered back, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming through his shirt. Marlene gasped. She hadn't meant to fire. That half-second of hesitation was all I needed. I grabbed the flashlight, swung it with every ounce of anger I'd stored over 20 years of betrayal, and cracked it across her wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. She screamed. I kicked the weapon down the stairs, out of reach, and slammed her back against the wall. Tom was on the ground, groaning, trying to stay conscious. I snatched the phone from my pocket and hit record. "Say hi to campus security, Dean." Marlene spat blood. "You think this will fix it? You're still in it, Susan. Your name's on every form, every transfer. When this breaks, you'll go down too." I leaned close enough to smell her expensive perfume over the gunpowder. "Then we'll go down together." Her expression cracked just for a heartbeat. Then she smiled again. "You really are Frank's wife." I froze. "Who?" "Your first husband," she said almost gently, "the one who introduced me to this whole game. You didn't know he was mine before he was yours?" The words hit harder than the gunshot. "Frank, my first husband, the man who died in a car crash 20 years ago." She saw the shock on my face and laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "Oh, he never told you?" I suppose some ghosts stay polite. Before I could react, flashing red lights filled the basement window, sirens, brakes, the front door crashing open, voices shouting, heavy boots pounding on the stairs. "Police! Drop your weapon!" Marlene didn't resist. She just smiled at me as they cuffed her, blood on her lip, lipstick perfect. "This isn't over, Mrs. Jenkins." "You're going to find out just how deep your family goes." As they dragged her away, I turned to Tom. His breathing was shallow, but he managed a weak grin. "Guess you got your dramatic ending." "Not yet," I said, pressing my hand over his wound. "You still owe me an explanation and about 45 apologies." He winced, tried to laugh, and passed out instead. I sat there on the cold basement floor, sirens fading, the papers fluttering in the draft like ghosts leaving the house. And as the paramedics lifted him away, I knew the dean was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. Hospitals have that sterile smell, bleach and grief, polished floors that squeak like they're trying to apologize. Tom was in room 214, patched up and sleeping, tubes snaking from his arm like he'd been plugged into a second chance. The doctor said the bullet missed anything vital. I muttered that I couldn't say the same about his sense of judgment. I hadn't slept in 30 hours. Coffee and adrenaline had replaced blood. The police took my statement at dawn. They said Marlene Dean Keller was in custody and already talking the kind of talking that buys deals and ruins reputations. One of the detectives, a young guy with tired eyes, slid a folder across the table. "Ma'am," he said, "we think you should see this." Inside were photos, old, grainy, black and white. A man I recognized instantly. Frank, my first husband, smiling that half smile that used to melt me and terrify me in equal measure. Except these weren't wedding photos. He was standing next to a woman, Marlene, younger, vibrant, in love. The caption, written in blue pen on the back of one photo, said, "Frank and Amp, Marlene Westridge Research Department, 1986. My stomach dropped. I flipped through the restaurant paperwork, lab reports, signatures, and there it was again. My name, my handwriting, my signature, except I hadn't even met Frank until 1990. I looked up. These are fake. The detective nodded. We know, but they were filed under your maiden name. Marlene started her embezzlement ring using identities of women Frank had connections with. You were one of them. My voice barely worked. Connections? He cleared his throat. Mrs. Jenkins, Frank wasn't just her husband, he was her partner in the fraud. The records show he helped her build the shell accounts years before you two met. When he died, she used your name to keep the system going. I leaned back, dizzy. You're telling me my first husband and the woman who just held me at gunpoint were business partners in crime? Yes, ma'am, he said softly. And when he died, she made sure you inherited more than his last name. I didn't remember leaving the room, but suddenly I was outside, sitting on a bench in the drizzle. The morning light was weak and grey. Somewhere in the building behind me, Tom was alive. Marlene was in handcuffs, and my whole life had turned into a rerun of Law and Amp. Order, midlife crisis unit. Then my phone buzzed. A new message, blocked number. You don't know the half of it. Check locker 312 at Westridge. The key's under Frank's headstone. I stared at the screen. My pulse hammered. Locker 312. Frank's headstone. My husband's grave, the one I hadn't visited in years. 2 hours later, I was standing in the old cemetery on Maple Street, the one with crooked stones and grass that grows just high enough to whisper. Frank's headstone looked smaller than I remembered. The carved letters worn down by time. Franklin Jenkins 19592005 loved and lost. I crouched beside it. My hands shook as I brushed away the wet leaves. And there, wedged in the crack between the stone and the base, was a small brass key, just like the text said. Locker 312, I whispered. The only lockers I knew of were at Westridge College in the old archives building, and if Marlene had planted that, it meant whatever was inside mattered enough to kill for. By the time I reached the college, the rain had turned to mist. The building was nearly empty, echoing with the ghosts of deadlines and bad coffee. The hallway smelled like dust and fluorescent regret. Locker 312 was at the end of the row, old, dented, paint peeling. I slid in the key, turned it, and the lock clicked. Inside was a single manila folder, and inside that a letter addressed to me. In handwriting I recognized instantly. Susan, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I tried to get out, but Marlene never lets anyone leave clean. The research grants, the shell companies, it was all her idea. I helped her build it, then I tried to stop it. I forged your name to protect you, to give you a future not tied to mine. I never meant for you to get dragged back in. The only person who knows the full story is our son. Keep him safe, Frank. I froze. Our son? I read the line again, certain I'd misunderstood. But there it was. His handwriting, his words. Frank and I never had children. The room spun. I sat down hard on the bench beneath the lockers. A son, somewhere out there. A secret he'd hidden even from me. And if Frank was right that Marlene never lets anyone leave clean, then maybe she wasn't done with me yet. Because if there really was a son, she'd know exactly where to find him. And she'd use him next. I didn't drive home that night. I didn't sleep. I just sat in my car outside Westridge College, Frank's letter trembling in my hands like it could burst into flames. The only person who knows the full story is our son. Our son. The one I never knew existed. The one Marlene had apparently kept hidden, a final ghost from a life I thought was long buried. The question wasn't who he was. It was whether he even knew who I was. And I had a sinking feeling Marlene was already 2 steps ahead of me. By the time I got to the hospital, the halls were quieter, just the beep of heart monitors and the faint shuffle of night nurses. Tom was awake, pale but smirking like a man who'd survived both a gunshot and his own stupidity. "I heard you stormed a college," he said, voice raspy. "I did," I said, "and I found something." A letter from Frank. That got his attention. "Your ex-husband?" "The very one," I said. "Turns out the fraud started with him and Marlene. They built it together and he used my name to protect me." Tom blinked. "That's weirdly romantic and criminal." "There's more," I said, handing him the letter. "He says he had a son." Tom frowned, reading. "But you never had kids with him." "I know," I said, "which means someone else did. And if Marlene's using that kid to clean up her mess, we're all in danger." Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. "You want answers? Meet me where it started." Jenkins Farm, midnight. I stared at the screen, my throat dry. "Jenkins Farm," I said. "Frank's old property. It's been abandoned for 20 years. Tom tried to sit up. "You can't go alone." "I'm not," I said, grabbing my coat. "You're staying alive. That's your job now." He sighed. "You're impossible." I smiled thinly. "That's why I'm still standing. The road to Jenkins Farm hadn't changed. Same cracked pavement, same whispering trees." The moon hung low, slicing through the fog like it was just as curious as I was. The farmhouse loomed ahead dark, leaning, a skeleton of its former self. The porch groaned under my boots as I stepped inside. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing. Then, a faint flicker light spilling from the kitchen doorway, I pushed the door open and froze. There, sitting at the table like a scene from a dream I'd never had, was a young man, maybe 25, tall, sandy-haired, with the same stubborn jawline Frank used to have. He looked up, startled. "You came? Who are you?" I asked, softly. "My name's Michael," he said. "Frank Jenkins was my father." My knees nearly gave out. You're real." He nodded. "He told me about you, said you were the only person who could stop her." "Marlene," I said. He nodded again. "She found me after he died. Said she'd take care of me. Paid for my schooling, got me a job at the college. I didn't know who she really was, not until last year." "What happened?" He looked away. "She made me change records, delete files. I thought it was for the department until I saw your name. When I tried to confront her, she said if I ever told anyone, she'd make sure you went to prison for what he did. I clenched my fists. And now? She's desperate," he said. "She knows the police are building a case. She wants the rest of the files, the ones you found in the basement." "They're gone," I said. "The cops have them." Michael shook his head. "No, she already got them. One of the officers is on her payroll. She's running again tonight. But she wanted me to stall you." "Where is she?" I demanded. He hesitated, then whispered, "The docks. Pier 7. She's leaving on a cargo ship in an hour." I turned to leave, but he caught my arm. "She said if you show up, She won't run. I looked at him, those eyes, so much like Frank's. You're coming with me, I said. She doesn't get to use either of us again. The docks were a maze of shadows and noise cranes groaning, engines rumbling, the smell of salt and rust thick in the air. We spotted her near a container, coat flapping in the wind, calm as ever. "Marlene!" I shouted. She turned slowly, a faint smile on her lips. "Susan!" Right on time. Michael stepped beside me. "It's over," he said. "I told her everything." "Of course you did," she said smoothly. "Just like your father." I stepped closer. "You don't get to say his name." "Oh, but I do," she said, "because he was never really yours. He loved me until the end. You were just convenient." "Convenient enough to save his soul," I said, "and to end yours." Her smile faded. "You think the police will believe you over me? I'm a respected dean. You're a woman with a forged degree and a husband in the ICU. "Maybe," I said, "but I have something you don't." She tilted her head. "And what's that?" "Your confession." Michael hit play on his phone, the recording we'd made in the farmhouse. Her voice filled the night, cold and clear. "I recruited you. I used Susan's name. I built the system." Marlene's eyes widened. "You little—" The sirens cut her off. Blue lights flashed across the water as the police swarmed the dock. She didn't run this time. She just lowered her head and muttered, "Frank always did love drama." As they led her away, I felt something inside me finally unclench like a door closing after years of letting in drafts. Michael looked at me, uncertain. "What now?" I smiled. "Now? We start over. Both of us. Maybe plant something that isn't rotten." He nodded slowly. "He said you'd say something like that." "Your father?" "Yeah," he said softly. "He told me you were the one good thing he ever did right." For the first time in months, I laughed. Not bitter, not broken, just real. The sun was rising when we left the docks, light spilling across the water like forgiveness. And as the warmth hit my face, I realized something I should have known all along. You can lose your marriage, your degree, your past, and still come out whole. Because sometimes surviving isn't about rebuilding what was destroyed. It's about planting something new in the ashes.